Hey y'all, my name is Danny and I'm a senior product designer at ChipperCache. Like many of you, I've been trying to find ways to integrate Svelte into my day-to-day job, and as a designer with some technical background, I found that Svelte has become invaluable for me as a way to turn static mockups like this one, let's see here, boom, into something that can handle every variation that we want to test during a user interview. So what I'll be showing you today is how you can turn a pretty limited prototype, something that I might throw together just to model a particular set of interactions, into something that you could show to your users, get feedback on, and use as a learning tool within your organization. So for this talk, I'll be using a classic case study, the cat finder. And let's say my goal here is to let my users find a perfect cat photo based on a series of tags. And so as a designer, I know that my backend has two endpoints, and I'll show them to you here. One is a tags endpoint, which looks something like this in the response, and the other is a cats endpoint, which looks something like this. Maybe it's got some filtering in it, but here's the basic response. Basically, the data from these endpoints can be used to generate this list. So when a user hits the word white, they can filter this list by that tag and see all the photos that are tagged with that string. But wait a minute, there is a problem here. I can only tap on this white tag. So let's take a look at the design file and see why that's the case. So looking at this, you may find this a common situation that you're in. The designer, it's me, actually just threw together a single interaction. It looks like just this white prototype link works. It looks like the goal of this is just to show you that, hey, if you click on this, it'll only show the white prototype. And that doesn't really handle all of the tags. And you can imagine as a designer, if I wanted to test every single version of this situation, I'd have to make a copy of this, change this tag to a different color, this one to this color. And you can see how this could get pretty aggravating to have to go through. And even with symbols, you may end up with a lot of work to do as a designer. And of course, now I have to go back and see, okay, which one of these has hat in it? Okay, just that one. And yeah, this is going to take a while. So that's really what leads me to building out a prototype in Svelte is I want to make sure that this thing feels interactive, that our end user can actually click through this and really tell us what they think about the solution, not just give them a golden path that they have to stick to. Just having one example of filtering may not actually be a good test, since repeated actions can show how users adapt to a system over time or think about problems differently when given a varied set of tasks during a user test. So the right thing to do here is to make a prototype that incorporates the real data so that we can validate the data model works well and that the design of the interface is actually usable when users are using the real data set. So what I'll be showing today is exactly that. We're going to start off with these two JSON files that simulate the backend, and we're going to go ahead and create a new Svelte app to dive into that. So I'll go ahead and just look at this Svelte template. You may be used to this if you've used it in the past. So we're going to go ahead and start there. As you can see here, we've got the standard hello world. And what we're going to want to do is actually copy in the stuff from Figma into an app so we can really use it as a real world example for our users. So let's go ahead and do that now. We will go into Svelte app, take a look at our app.svelte. This is the classic Svelte file. And let's go ahead and kind of recreate this in Svelte. So the first thing we're going to do is take a look at our layers list. We've got a header. So let's make that now. There's kind of two approaches that you can do in a prototype. You can either export this as a PNG, which could work, but isn't very responsive. So if a user has a big screen, it's going to end up being a big cat finder unless you do a max width on it. Or if they have a small screen, it'll make it smaller. So since I want this to be kind of variable, I'm just going to go ahead and look at cat finders inspect. And this could work in any design tool. Just make sure you're kind of recreating some of the things the designer wants. So here, we're going to copy this typography as a CSS. So all this looks pretty good. Looks like we're using the Railway font. So that'll be, well, let's go ahead and just not do that for now. We'll just use Arial. All right. So here we're going to change this to H1, boom. Our H1 should be cat finder. And looks like that's probably about it. So let's take a look back at our localhost. Boom, we've got cat finder there at the top. Looking pretty good to me so far. So next up, we've got the background on H1. Looks like it's just kind of like a rectangle with some, some colors. So I'm gonna steal this box shadow. You're gonna find this happens a lot. Just kind of copying and pasting from the CSS. This prototype is not meant to be really a real working software, although you certainly could just like end up with this at the end of the day in your actual production software. But the idea here is to get something just out the door so that way our users can see it and respond to it. So let's see here, things on the edges. So padding on the edges, so we're just going to go ahead and add that padding as well. So we're going to do padding top 12 pixels, bottom is 0. That'll give us that. And then of course, finally, our header, we need to have a text align center. Cool, so here we are at the Cat Finder homepage. We've got a header now that we can then put our tags and our cats in. So at this point, we really just need to recreate these tags and this search by section. So similarly, we'll go ahead and just add in a next section here. We'll call it just a div. It'll be the tags section. So class equals tags. And in here, we're going to have a list of tags. Now, here's kind of two options. We can either use the copy and paste these in, but that doesn't really give us some flexibility. Or we can do the fun Svelte thing and iterate on these. So let's go ahead and do an each block here and the each block, each tags as tag. And then we actually have to make sure that our tags JSON is in our source file, which I just did here. And from there, really it's just a matter of, well, let's actually rename this to .js. And here's why. If it's a JSON file, we're going to have to actually change our rollup setup and actually make it so it can import JSON. But conveniently, passing around JavaScript is actually pretty easy in Svelte. So we're going to go ahead and modify this just slightly so it's something that's workable for us. So we're going to do export tags, const tags equals, and then our list. What that will let us do is actually reuse that here. So go ahead and import our tags from ./tags.js. And that should give us, gotta make sure we actually show it on the screen. There we go. And there we are. All of the tags are listed out, and let's style them the way that they need to be styled. So this is probably best to be a span, and mostly because it's going to be in line this way. And from there, we will just go ahead and grab the CSS. So similarly, we want essentially a text with some padding around it and a background color. So luckily, our background color is pretty easy to grab. We can just grab it from here. It looks like we've got a border radius of 4 on there, which is kind of nice. So let's grab that too. All right, so span, we're going to call it class equals tag, and we are going to use that class here. All right, very nice. And so you could also just do like, tags span, but works too. So let's go ahead and take a look at what that looks like. Get some grays. Probably want some padding right on that. Let's go ahead and look at our design file. 8 pixels, great. So 8 pixels. And from here, let's see here. We've got, margin right. There we go. And then from here, we really want to make sure we got some padding all around it. That is 4 and 8. So let's go ahead and do that. Top, bottom. And boom, looks pretty close to what we want. Let's go ahead and use our tags class just to give us a little bit more margin at the top. So let's do margin top like 8 pixels or something. And it's pretty close. All right, looks like we need to have some sort of header in here. So let's do a header 2. And that will help our screen readers if our users happen to be a screen reader. So let's go ahead and use that for search by. And that'll give us some default styles. Pretty close. Let's go ahead and grab the actual ones. So once again, Figma gives us this great set of rules that we want. So let's go ahead and copy that. And we'll incorporate it into here. So as you can see, we're really fleshing out the details here. Although it is, kind of feels duplicative to kind of recreate your work in yet another piece of software, it does kind of, you start to see how maybe you can start to make responsive choices here. If this is a web app, how are we going to break this down? How are we going to, you can see the designer wanted the overflow to kind of do this. Is that what we want? Do we want something to do something different? These are questions we get to ask now that we're using real data. So that's pretty cool. Finally, let's go ahead and render these cats before we go ahead and just clean up some responsiveness. So into here, we'll see that we want to have another each block. So let's go ahead and make a spot for that. This will be our images. We'll call them class equals cats. And here we'll have another each block, as I mentioned. And in here we'll have each cats as cat. And let's see here, we'll end our each block. And in here, let's go ahead and inspect our JSON once again. We'll drag it into source just so it's easy to manipulate, change it to JS, and import it here the same way we did our tags. So cats from cats. In our cats file, we have to actually export it. So let's do the same thing. Export cats, or const cats. Boom. All right, so now we've got some cats that we can use. Really, the only thing we really need here is, if it's a tag, show it, and the actual image link itself. So here's the logic comes in, and really where the rubber hits the road. So first thing we'll do is just render all the cats. That's the easiest thing to do. We will have an image, and we're going to go ahead and say source equals, the cat dot, what do we call it? Image link. Yes. And we'll go ahead and close that. And that should give us some cats. Ooh, look at that. Look at all those cats. So happy to see this. But they are not really the way that we want them. So let's go ahead and style those accordingly. So the way that this Figma file has been set up is it looks like it's got this nice little border radius. It's got this really image, and then it looks like the cat image itself is fitting within it. So it's almost as if there is, this isn't so much of an image as it is a div with a background. So we're going to make that a div who has, we'll give it some common styles here. So we'll call it cat, and really there's no content in it. So we'll just have it be a div here. And let's go ahead and say that our style, we have a background image, and it's got a URL with this info. All right, and then let's go ahead and style this up. We will say dot cat is, it's got border radius, I think it's 8 pixels. Let's have a look. Yes, you've got some drop shadows and things on it, which is very nice. Good thing I can just copy that. Cool. And let's see how that looks. it is not happy with us here. Background. We need to actually put the width and the height. So our width is going to be 320 and our height is 200. Absolutely. Excellent. Excellent. All right, so it's not quite what we wanted, so we actually have to have our background be probably a center and cover. That'll be vertically centered, horizontally centered, and then also stretching it to cover. And so, oops, got to put it in the right spot. All right, so that should give us something pretty close to what we want. Looks like we've got some margins here, 16 pixels at the bottom. So let's go ahead and do that as well. So we'll do on the cat, margin, bottom, 16 pixels. Excellent. And then looks like our search section still needs some help here. So we'll do some margin, bottom, close enough. We'll just do some like 16 pixels maybe. Yeah, that's about right. Sweet. And so this looks about what we want, but isn't really going to be what our designer wants once we get here, as you can see. So let's go ahead and make this more responsive. We will kind of just have it side by side so we can see what it looks like. Remember, what we're aiming for is this app where this is horizontally scrollable, and this over here allows for us to work within it. So I think the right thing to do here is just to this search by section here, really I think we might just need to pull out, so that way we can handle tags individually. So that's going to hopefully give us something that we can work with. Tags, we want to have overflow, all right, so it looks a little funky with the scroll bar on desktop, but this is a mobile application, so go ahead and move on. We can see here that we've got a little bit of a difference as well in the way we're handling our images. So, so the thing you might want to do is actually make cats 100% width, text align center, but that's not going to work because these aren't actually images, they're divs, right? So instead, probably the easiest way to do this is to just kind of do margin, just total margin here, and do margin top is going to be 0, margin right, auto, margin bottom, 16 pixels, and margin left, auto. And what that will do is it will actually center these guys left and right. So now we've got really something that works on all screen sizes, close enough, although let's go ahead and make that margin left on search by. Excellent. So now we've got our cat finder the way that it was designed, mostly. Got some interesting scrolling issues here. Let's go ahead and fix that by just making the height 46 pixels. Excellent. So that's going to be close enough to what we want on the design. This is going to look fine on mobile, which is good. And now we just need to have these tags actually do something. So let's go ahead and have this be an on-click handler here, which we're going to define up here. And here we need to actually tell it what to call. So we're going to go ahead and call it with the tag itself. Tag. And here we're going to say, right, there is a thing. It's called the current tag, and it is currently set to nothing. And then here, if the current tag is not set, so I have to set it. So set tag to tag, set tag current tag equals tag, and that will give us something to work with. Let's go ahead and just console.log that out and see if that's working. See if that's working as expected. So let's go ahead and take a look at our inspector. And we will click on one of these. Oops. And yes, it's calling it all the time. Let's go ahead and indirect that a little bit. Cool. Now we've got the ability to really get our tag correctly. Let's go ahead and actually hook it up to our each statement. So really what we're going to do here is just check if this cat is, has the tag. So let's go ahead and add an if statement here, and we will end the if statement below. And really our if statement is going to be, if cat dot, let's go ahead and look at our JavaScript itself, cat dot tags dot contains, and it's going to be our current tag. All right, includes, that's what I meant. All right, so it looks like no matter what, it's going to be not happy with us. It's happy here, actually once you selected it, but this empty state is really causing some issues here. So let's go ahead. We'll just say if it equals an empty string, oops, or the cat includes the current tag. So that'll give us, boom. All right, so by default, it's going to have that. If you clicked on it, it will change. And the only thing we want, that we saw in the prototype, is when you click it again, it'll clear it. So we're just going to say if current tag equals tag, then the current tag is back to an empty string else. So we're already kind of thinking about the logic, how we're actually going to build it in production here, which is pretty cool, kind of helpful for us. And yeah, so now we can click on, click off. Oops. All right, so now we can click on, click off, and the cats jump around. Very nice, huh? All right, so next up, we need to actually make show the state of the current tag. So similarly, we want to just check here in the span if the current tag equals the tag that we're iterating through, then we'll just have like a class called current. Otherwise, it'll just look like this. And we'll go ahead and actually use that class here. So current is going to be white. Excellent. So now we should be able to, you can see, navigate between these. We'll show the current state. And this is just a small thing, but these are like tags. You probably don't want them to like actually drag and select them. So let's go ahead. I think there's a CSS rule for that. It's like user select none, something like that. All right. So that's better. It's a little bit easier to mess with. I think on mobile, look like this. This is pretty close to what the designers actually wanted. Essentially, this shows like a working prototype, right? Something that has every single kind of use case available to us. If we want to make it super fancy, we may, put actually like animations in there. But essentially here we've got something that we can actually send to users. So let's go ahead and make that happen. Best way to do that is just put it onto GitHub pages. So I think the best thing to do here is just rename this to docs. And I'll show you why we do that in just a moment. And then we're going to go ahead and create a new repo to make that happen. So let's go ahead and go to github.com. If you use GitLab, they also have GitLab pages. That is also totally fine. And we'll make this, Svelte Summit example. And we'll go ahead and make this public. We're going to ignore all this and just create a repository. And from here, we will copy this. If you're using HTTPS to log in to Git, you should use that. And we'll go ahead and we will git remote add origin. There we go. And now we can then just git add all. And we will git commit, first commit. And git push. Oh, can also do that. There we go. So while that's pushing, I'll show you the setting to turn on so you can get this working on GitHub pages. Again, this is just so it's public and we can send it to our end users. You want to scroll down to the GitHub pages section and click here in the drop down the master branch once it's ready. There we go. And then here you want to serve it from the docs folder. That's the reason we had to rename that folder, is because really there's only two options we have on GitHub pages at the moment. So we'll hit save and let's go back to our code. You can see here that everything we were just working on is available here. We've got the default README and everything. And all that stuff in the build is available here in the docs folder. So the thing about GitHub pages, or really any shared URL, see how it's got our username / Svelte Summit example, is that these base URLs are actually not going to work. So the right thing to do is actually do relative URLs. So we'll go ahead and just remove these slashes here and go ahead and hit save, and we will commit once again, git commit, this time for real. And we'll git push. All right, so you can see here, we'll go ahead and just wait just a moment as it goes up to the internet and back. All right, so unfortunately GitHub has a 10-minute timeout, so you do have to actually go in and disable your cache. But essentially you can see here now we've got everything working on our GitHub pages. This is available for anyone to use, so you can actually send this link to our user and actually have them use it in real life. And essentially this allows for us to get feedback in a way that would take designers much longer to actually create and recreate. And so let's say if a user decides, actually I prefer if the tags were in alphabetical order, that's something we can change very easily, versus a designer would have to go and kind of recreate the entire setup to make that happen. And certainly that's something that as your feedback gets more and more I would say variant, you may give designers the ability to update these prototypes. That way they can change it on the fly as they are testing with real users. So the important thing to consider here, though, is the return on investment of prototyping versus actually building the system. I've used this technique in the past to have full control over the experience while testing and throw it all away if it didn't click with users. So if you're going to production with real code, ends up being a faster way to test some assumptions, definitely do that instead. But if the cost of change is high, for instance, you have to wait weeks for something to go through a sprint, this form of prototyping is a great way to empower your product team with production-like UX in a fraction of the time. And so, to summarize what we learned today is how to use production-like data models in an application that is really easy and quick to build to emulate something that may take much longer in our design file and allow for us to respond to feedback quickly in a prototype world. That's all I've got. Have a great rest of Svelte Summit, y'all.